My name is Samantha Bennett, and I'm 34 years old. 7 years of marriage to Jason, and I thought I knew everything about him. I cut my Chicago medical conference short to surprise him for our upcoming anniversary. The moment I turned my key in our front door, I felt something was off. The house we'd built together suddenly felt foreign. I should have listened to my instincts that day. If I had known what waited upstairs, I would have never come home early. If you're watching this video, let me know where you're tuning in from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had that gut feeling something wasn't right. Trust me, my story might help you trust your intuition next time. The 12-hour shifts in the emergency room had prepared me for many things: blood, trauma, quick decision-making, but nothing prepared me for what I discovered that Tuesday afternoon. I'd been working as an ER nurse for almost a decade, and the promotion to head nurse last spring felt like the culmination of years of dedication. Jason had been so proud, taking me out to celebrate at La Maison, the fancy French restaurant where we'd had our first date after reconnecting. Jason and I weren't high school sweethearts, but we were college ones. We met during freshman orientation at State University and dated intensely for 2 years before our careers pulled us in different directions. He went to law school on the West Coast while I stayed to complete my nursing degree. 10 years later, we bumped into each other at a mutual friend's wedding. The moment our eyes met across that reception hall, it was like no time had passed at all. 6 months later, he proposed on the pier where we used to watch sunsets during college. A year after that, we were married in a beautiful ceremony with 150 of our closest friends and family. Our life together had been everything I'd dreamed of. We bought a beautiful colonial-style home in the suburbs 3 years ago. Jason's law career was thriving at Harrison and Mueller, where he specialized in corporate law. We had talked about starting a family soon, though we'd agreed to wait until I was settled in my new position. Everything was falling perfectly into place, or so I thought. The anniversary surprise I had planned was something I'd been coordinating for months. 2 tickets to Hawaii, hidden inside a bottle of Macallan 18, his favorite whiskey. Jason had always talked about wanting to see the volcanic beaches and swim in those crystal blue waters. I'd been squirreling away extra shifts for nearly a year to afford this dream vacation. The conference in Chicago had been the perfect cover to finalize the last details with the travel agent. My original plan was to return Thursday evening, but when the final day's sessions were made optional, I jumped at the chance to come home early. Jason wasn't expecting me until late Thursday, which gave me the perfect opportunity to set up my surprise. I'd even called his assistant Miranda to ensure he wouldn't be working late Tuesday. She confirmed he'd blocked off his afternoon for case prep at home, something he did occasionally for big clients. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Jason's black BMW already parked there. Perfect, I thought. He's already home. I checked my makeup in the rearview mirror, applied a fresh coat of the ruby red lipstick he loved, and grabbed the wrapped whiskey bottle and my overnight bag. The butterflies in my stomach felt like they were doing somersaults. I couldn't wait to see his face when he unwrapped those tickets. Our tree-lined street was quiet that afternoon. Mrs. Patterson was walking her corgi, and she waved as I got out of my car. I waved back, pressing my finger to my lips to signal my surprise homecoming. She smiled knowingly and continued her walk. The April air carried the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming dogwoods. Our own front yard looked immaculate. Jason had always been particular about lawn maintenance. I used my key as quietly as possible, easing the front door open and gently setting down my suitcase in the foyer. That's when I noticed the first strange detail: an unfamiliar floral scent hung in the air. Not my perfume, which was a warm vanilla musk Jason had given me for Christmas. This was something sharper, more citrusy. I dismissed it initially. Maybe the cleaning service had switched products. Our home was eerily quiet, though Jason's briefcase sat on the entryway table, his custom leather one with his initials embossed that I'd given him for his last birthday. So he was definitely home. Perhaps he was napping or working with headphones on in his office. As I moved further inside, I noticed more discordant details. 2 wine glasses in the kitchen sink, one with a distinct lipstick smudge that wasn't my shade. A woman's light jacket draped over one of our dining chairs, unfamiliar and definitely not mine. My heart started to beat faster, but my mind raced to find innocent explanations. A client meeting at home, perhaps? But why wine? And why was a woman's jacket left behind? That's when I heard it, muffled sounds coming from upstairs. Our bedroom. Not just any sounds, but the unmistakable rhythmic creaking of our bed frame and what sounded like a woman's laughter, followed by a deeper voice I recognized all too well. The anniversary surprise in my hand suddenly felt leaden. The beautiful future I'd imagined just moments ago began to fracture like thin ice beneath my feet. I stood frozen in our living room, the room we'd spent so many evenings in, watching movies, planning our future, making love on the couch when we couldn't wait to get upstairs. Do I confront them? Do I leave quietly and pretend I never saw this? Do I make noise to announce my presence? The question swirled in my head as I stood there, my world tilting on its axis. I found myself climbing our staircase, each step feeling like I was moving through molasses. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it might bruise. My palms grew clammy around the wrapped whiskey bottle, and a cold sweat broke out across my forehead. The sounds from our bedroom grew more distinct as I approached, and there was no longer any doubt about what was happening behind that door. My mind flashed back to our second year of dating, when I'd found flirtatious text messages on Jason's phone from a law school classmate. We'd nearly broken up over it. He'd sworn nothing physical had happened, and after weeks of long conversations and tears, I'd chosen to believe him. He'd promised on his mother's life, that he would never betray my trust again. "You're the only woman I want, Sam," he'd said, eyes earnest and pleading. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you." And I'd believed him. Through the years of long distance during his final year of law school and my nursing residency. Through the stresses of career building and house hunting. Through the rough patch last year when we'd struggled with intimacy after my miscarriage. I'd always believed in us, in him. There had been signs recently, hadn't there? Signs I'd chosen to ignore. Jason staying late at the office 3 or 4 nights a week. The sudden business trips that came up with little notice. How he'd started taking his phone into the bathroom when he showered. The way he'd angled his computer screen away when I walked into his home office. Just last month, I'd noticed him quickly ending a call when I entered the kitchen unexpectedly. "Work stress," he'd explained with a tight smile. "Big case. You know how it is." And I'd nodded understandingly because I did know. My own work at the hospital was demanding and often emotionally draining. We were both ambitious professionals. It made sense. Now, standing outside our bedroom door, hearing another woman laugh in the intimate way that should only be meant for me, all those excuses felt like tissue paper in the rain. I thought about the last time Jason and I had made love nearly 3 weeks ago. It had felt rushed, perfunctory, lacking the connection we'd always shared. He'd turned away immediately after, claiming exhaustion, while I'd lain awake wondering what was changing between us. A particularly loud sound from beyond the door jolted me from my thoughts. I stood there, the anniversary gift clutched in my increasingly numb fingers, frozen in indecision. Part of me wanted to run back down the stairs, drive away, and pretend this day never happened. But the larger part, the part that had helped me survive growing up with an alcoholic father and put myself through nursing school, refused to be a coward. I recalled the night Jason had introduced me to his colleagues at the firm's holiday party 6 months ago. "This is my wife, Samantha," he'd said proudly, his arm around my waist. "She saves lives while I just save corporations money." Everyone had laughed, and I'd felt so loved, so secure. Had he already been unfaithful then? Had he been looking at her across the room while holding me close? The thought made bile rise in my throat. I heard a woman's voice from beyond the door, saying Jason's name in a way that made my stomach twist. That voice sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. My free hand rose to the doorknob, hesitated, then gripped it firmly. I took one deep breath, then another. Then I turned the knob and pushed the door open. The scene before me branded itself into my memory like a hot iron. Our California king bed, the one we'd saved for months to buy, was a tangle of our cream-colored sheets. And there they were, my husband and a woman I instantly recognized as Heather Williams, a paralegal from his firm. Her long blonde hair was spread across my pillowcase, her red-painted nails gripping Jason's shoulders. Both of them were unmistakably naked, their bodies joined in the most intimate betrayal imaginable. For one surreal moment, they didn't notice me. Then Jason's eyes flicked toward the doorway, and time seemed to stop. His expression transformed from pleasure to shock to horror in the span of a heartbeat. He jerked away from Heather as if electrocuted. "Sam." His voice cracked on my name. "What, you're supposed to be in Chicago?" Heather's eyes widened as she scrambled to cover herself with our sheet. The Egyptian cotton ones we'd received as a wedding gift. Her face flushed crimson as she registered who I was. I recognized her from the firm's Christmas party and summer barbecue. She'd been friendly, complimenting my dress, asking about my work at the hospital. All while sleeping with my husband. "Oh my God," she whispered, clutching the sheet to her chest. I stood immobilized in the doorway, my body feeling strangely disconnected from my mind. The room seemed to pulse and waver around me, sounds becoming muffled as if I were underwater. I was aware of my breathing becoming shallow, my vision narrowing to a tunnel that contained only the bed and its occupants. "Sam, I can explain," Jason was saying, hurriedly pulling on his boxers. His face had gone ashen, beads of sweat visible on his forehead. It's not what it looks like." A bark of laughter escaped me, so harsh and unfamiliar it barely sounded human. "Not what it looks like?" My voice was eerily calm. "It looks like you're fucking your paralegal in our bed." Heather flinched at my words. "Samantha, I'm so sorry." "I didn't, he told me you were separated." Another piece of my heart shattered. So he'd been lying to her too. I remembered the firm's summer party last July, when Jason had introduced Heather to me. "This is our new paralegal, Heather," he'd said casually. "She's been a godsend on the Michelson case." She'd shaken my hand with a bright smile, commenting on how Jason talked about me all the time. Had it already been happening then? Had they been exchanging knowing glances while I innocently sipped my wine? Jason was approaching me now, hands outstretched in a placating gesture. "Baby, please. Let me explain. It's not serious. It was a mistake." I stepped back, my spine hitting the doorframe. "How long?" The words felt like glass in my throat. He hesitated, and in that pause, I knew it had been a long time. "How long, Jason?" Each word dropped like a stone. 3 months, he whispered. "Maybe 4. The anniversary gift slipped from my fingers, hitting the hardwood floor with a dull thud. The carefully wrapped package split open, revealing the ornate whiskey bottle with the Hawaiian tickets nestled against it. Jason's eyes followed it down, confusion flickering across his face. "What's that?" he asked. "Our anniversary surprise," I said, my voice hollow. "Tickets to Hawaii. Hidden in your favorite whiskey." I laughed again, that same strange sound. "Surprise." Jason's face crumpled. "Sam, please." But I was already turning away, my body finally responding to my brain's desperate commands to move, to flee. I walked mechanically down the hallway, hearing Jason calling after me, hearing Heather's distressed murmuring. I made it to the staircase before my legs gave out, and I sank onto the top step, one hand gripping the banister so tightly my knuckles turned white. Behind me, I could hear Jason frantically pulling on clothes, Heather asking panicked questions in a hushed voice. And suddenly, in the midst of this nightmare, a strange calm descended over me. The initial shock was giving way to something else, something hot and fierce that began to burn away the numbness. I recognized it distantly as rage, rising like floodwater in my chest. I made it downstairs just as Jason came thundering after me, still buttoning his shirt, his hair disheveled. His wedding ring caught the afternoon light streaming through our living room windows, the ring I'd placed on his finger as he'd promised to love and cherish me forever. Sam, wait, he called, desperation edging his voice. Please let me explain. I whirled to face him, the calm I'd felt on the stairs evaporating. Explain what exactly? How you've been screwing your paralegal for months. How you've been lying to my face every single day. Please, enlighten me. He flinched at my words but pressed on. It's not like that. Things have been difficult between us. You're always working, always exhausted. The pressure at the firm has been unbelievable, and Heather was just there. Just there? I repeated incredulously. In our bed? In our home? The home we built together? It was a mistake, he insisted, running his hands through his hair. A stupid, terrible mistake. It didn't mean anything. 4 months of mistakes? My voice rose. Were you mistakenly sleeping with her when I called you from my night shifts? Were you mistakenly with her on our anniversary last month when you said you had to work late? His silence was confirmation enough. You told her we were separated, I continued, the pieces falling into horrible place. You've been systematically lying to both of us. Jason's expression hardened slightly. You haven't exactly been present in this marriage lately, Sam. Since your promotion, it's all been about your career. I come second to the hospital, to your patients, to everything. The audacity of his attempt to shift blame ignited something primal in me. Don't you dare try to make this my fault. I've been working extra shifts to pay for your surprise anniversary trip. A trip I've been planning for months while you've been planning your afternoon delights with Heather. From upstairs came the sound of movement. Heather appeared at the top of the staircase, fully dressed now but looking thoroughly disheveled. Her mascara had smudged under her eyes, and she clutched her purse like a shield. I think I should go, she said quietly. Yes, you should, I snapped, then paused as a terrible thought occurred to me. How many times have you been in my house, Heather? How many times have you been in my bed? She paled, looking to Jason for guidance. His silence spoke volumes. This wasn't the first time she's been here, was it? I asked him directly. Jason's jaw tightened. No, he admitted. It wasn't. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. All those late nights at the office. All those weekend case preparations. How many had actually been spent with Heather? In our home, the sanctuary we'd created together? I didn't know, Heather said, descending the stairs carefully, as if afraid I might attack her. About the state of your marriage, I mean. Jason told me you were separated, living together for financial reasons until the divorce was finalized. I stared at her in disbelief, then at Jason, whose face had gone crimson. Divorce? We've never even discussed divorce. I was going to talk to you about it, he said weakly. After things settled down with your new position. How considerate of you, I spat, fury building in my chest. Planning our divorce without me while screwing your coworker in our marital bed. Heather had reached the bottom of the stairs, and now stood awkwardly near the front door. I really am sorry, Samantha. If I'd known. Just go, I told her, suddenly too exhausted for her apologies. As she reached for the door handle, another thought struck me. Wait. How long have you known Jason? She hesitated. About 8 months. I transferred from the firm's Boston office. 8 months. The timeline made something click in my mind. The firm's retreat in September. You were both there. Jason's expression confirmed my suspicion before he could deny it. That's when it started, wasn't it? Not 4 months ago. 8 months ago. Sam, please. 8 months ago, I continued, memories flooding back, when I had that miscarriage. When I was in the hospital, and you said you couldn't leave the retreat early because of the presentations you had to give. Jason at least had the decency to look ashamed. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I demanded. Tell me, Jason. I'm dying to know what it was like to start an affair while your wife was losing your baby. The sound of the front door opening interrupted his response. Heather was slipping out, but hesitated on the threshold. Jason wasn't at any presentations, she said quietly. We were together at the hotel bar when you called. He told me it was his brother on the phone. With that parting revelation, she closed the door behind her, leaving us in a silence so heavy it seemed to press against my skin. You were with her, I whispered, when I called you crying from the hospital. I didn't know about the baby then, he protested. You just said you weren't feeling well. Because the doctor hadn't confirmed it yet. I shouted, the memory of that painful day fresh again. I called you because I was scared. I was bleeding and in pain, and you said you were too busy to talk. A knock at the front door interrupted us. I yanked it open to find our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, standing there with concern etched on her face. Everything all right, Samantha? I heard shouting. Everything's fine, Jason interjected quickly, appearing at my side. Just a little disagreement. I looked at Mrs. Patterson's concerned face, then at Jason's falsely reassuring smile, and something inside me snapped. No, everything is not fine, I told her. But thank you for checking. I'll be all right. I closed the door gently and turned back to Jason. 8 months, I repeated, my voice deadly quiet now. 8 months of lying to my face. Did our marriage ever mean anything to you? Of course it did, he insisted. It does. This thing with Heather, it got out of hand. But we can fix this, Sam. We can go to counseling, work through it. I shook my head in disbelief. You think counseling is going to fix this? You've been living a double life for almost a year. I moved toward the kitchen, needing space, needing to breathe. Jason followed, his desperation growing visible. What about all we built together, he pleaded. Our home, our plans. 7 years of marriage. Are you going to throw that away? I whirled on him. Me? I'm not the one who threw it away. You did that the moment you decided to cheat. His expression changed then, hardening into something I'd rarely seen, the ruthless attorney who won impossible cases. You haven't exactly been the perfect wife, Sam. All those extra shifts, coming home too tired for anything but sleep. I was saving for our anniversary trip. I shouted, gesturing toward the broken package still lying at the foot of the stairs. For us. And what about before that, he countered. Your promotion became your whole life. Do you know how many dinners I've eaten alone this year? How many nights I've gone to bed without you? His attempt to justify his betrayal was the final straw. I grabbed my phone from my purse. What are you doing? He demanded. Checking our joint account, I said, opening the banking app. If you've been living a double life, I want to know what else you've been hiding. His sudden lunge for my phone confirmed my suspicions before I even saw the account balance. I clutched my phone tightly, backing away from Jason's reaching hands. His sudden desperation to keep me from seeing our finances told me everything I needed to know. Give me the phone, Sam, he demanded, his voice taking on an edge I'd never heard before. You're being irrational. Irrational? I repeated, navigating to our joint account while keeping the kitchen island between us. I just caught you having sex with another woman in our bed, and I'm being irrational for wanting to check our finances? The banking app finally loaded, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Our savings account, the one we'd been building for years, was down by almost $40,000. Transfers had been made consistently over the past 6 months to an account I didn't recognize. What is this? I held up the screen, showing the transactions. Where's our money, Jason? His face went through a rapid series of expressions, surprise, guilt, then calculated calm. The lawyer face was back. I made some investments. They'll pay off soon. Investments? I scrolled through more transactions. Regular withdrawals of $2,000 every 2 weeks. That's not investing. That's systematic draining. It's my money too, he said defensively, his voice rising. I don't question how you spend yours. On bills. On our mortgage. On groceries. I was shouting now, my whole body trembling with rage. Not on my secret girlfriend. Jason's face darkened. Keep your voice down. The neighbors will hear. Let them hear. I yelled even louder. Let them all hear how Jason Bennett, respected attorney, sleeps with his paralegal and steals from his wife. His hands balled into fists at his sides. I didn't steal anything. That money is as much mine as it is yours. We were saving for our future, I said, my voice breaking. For the family we talked about starting. Was that all a lie too? I never lied about wanting a family, he said, but his eyes shifted away from mine. Another lie. You've been spending our money on her, haven't you? I asked, a sickening realization dawning. Those investments, they were for Heather. His silence was confirmation enough. The diamond earrings she was wearing at the office Christmas party, I continued, memories clicking into place. The weekend conferences that you never brought materials back from. You've been taking her on trips with our money. She needed help with her student loans, he finally admitted. And yes, some gifts. Some trips. What's the big deal? We have plenty of money. I corrected him. We had plenty of money. Until you decided to spend it on your mistress. My phone pinged with a text message. I glanced down to see it was from an unknown number. This is Heather. I'm so sorry. I truly didn't know you were still together. Jason told me you were separated and just keeping up appearances. I held up the phone for Jason to see. Still want to claim it was just about me working too much? You constructed an entire fictional separation to seduce her. Jason's face contorted with anger. You had no right to contact her. I didn't. I shot back. She texted me. Seems like she has more of a conscience than you do. I texted Heather back rapidly, how long has Jason been giving you money? Her reply came quickly, since December. He's been helping with my rent and loans. About $2,000 every 2 weeks. I showed Jason the exchange, watching his face pale. That's almost $24,000, Jason. Where's the rest of it? I don't have to explain myself to you, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You're blowing this out of proportion. Out of proportion? I was incredulous. You've stolen $40,000 from our joint savings. That's grand theft. It's not theft when it's my money too, he roared, slamming his fist on the kitchen counter so hard that our wedding photo fell over. The frame cracked as it hit the granite surface. The sound of breaking glass seemed to snap something in both of us. We stared at the fallen photo, us on our wedding day, smiling, hopeful, in love. Or so I had thought. You know what? Keep the money, I said, suddenly feeling eerily calm. Consider it the price I paid to discover who you really are. I turned to head back upstairs, intending to pack a bag and leave. Where do you think you're going? Jason demanded, following me. Anywhere but here, I replied without turning around. You can't just walk away from this, he said, grabbing my arm to stop me. We need to talk this through. His grip was tight, too tight. I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. Don't touch me, I said quietly. Ever again. This is my house too, he said, his voice rising again. You can't just decide it's over. Watch me, I replied, continuing up the stairs. He followed close behind. You're not thinking clearly, Sam. You're upset. Let's calm down and discuss this rationally. I laughed bitterly. Rationally? You want rational from me right now? After finding you in bed with another woman? After discovering you've been stealing our savings? I reached our bedroom, the scene of the crime, and hesitated at the threshold. The bed was still unmade, the sheets tangled. The scent of sex and Heather's perfume lingered in the air. Nausea rose in my throat. I can't even look at this room, I muttered, turning instead toward the guest bedroom. I would grab some essentials from the bathroom and spare closet where some of my off-season clothes were stored. Jason blocked my path. "You're not leaving," he said firmly. "Not until we figure this out." Something in his tone sent a chill down my spine. I'd never been afraid of Jason before, but the man standing before me now, with cold eyes and a set jaw, seemed like a stranger. "Move, Jason," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm going to pack a bag, and I'm going to leave. We can talk tomorrow when I'm less likely to say something I'll regret." "Like what?" he challenged, stepping closer. "What exactly do you think you're going to do, Sam? Divorce me? Over one mistake?" "Multiple mistakes," I corrected him. "Months of mistakes. And yes, divorce is exactly what I'm thinking." His expression darkened further. "You'd never go through with it. You don't have the guts." "Try me," I replied, attempting to step around him. He moved again to block me, this time putting his hand on the wall beside my head, effectively caging me in. "You're not going anywhere," he repeated. "Not until you agree to be reasonable about this." Fear flickered through me, but I refused to show it. "Take your hand down, Jason. Now." "Or what?" he challenged, leaning closer. "What are you going to do? Call the police on your husband for wanting to talk to you?" The sound of the front door opening downstairs startled us both. "Sam," called a familiar voice. "Are you home? Your car's outside." Relief flooded through me. "I'm upstairs, Claire." I called back to my sister. Jason's expression changed instantly, the intimidating mask slipping away as footsteps sounded on the stairs. Claire appeared at the top of the staircase, taking in the scene with a quick glance, Jason's hand on the wall beside my head, my obviously distressed state. "Everything okay here?" she asked carefully, her hand already reaching for her phone in her pocket. "No," I said clearly. "Everything is not okay. I need to pack a bag. I'm coming to stay with you." Jason stepped back, aware of how the situation looked. "We're just having a discussion," he told Claire, attempting a casual tone that fell completely flat. Claire's eyes narrowed. She'd never fully warmed to Jason, sensing something in him that I'd been blind to. "Didn't look like a discussion to me," she said coolly. "Looked like intimidation." "This is between me and my wife," Jason said, his jaw tight. "Not anymore," Claire replied, coming to stand beside me. "Sam, do you want to leave?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Then that's what's happening," she said firmly, guiding me toward the guest room. "Pack what you need. I'll help you." Jason followed us, hovering in the doorway as I pulled a small suitcase from the closet. "You're making a mistake, Sam," he said, his voice now placating. "We can work through this." I ignored him, focusing on gathering essentials, clothes, toiletries, my laptop, important documents. Claire stood between us, a physical barrier against Jason's attempts to continue the conversation. "At least tell me where you're going," he insisted. "We need to talk about this." "She'll be with me," Claire said firmly. "And she'll talk to you when she's ready. Not before." As I packed, Claire discreetly took out her phone and began recording, capturing Jason's increasingly agitated behavior as he realized I was actually leaving. "You can't just walk out on 7 years of marriage," he shouted, his lawyer composure completely gone now. "What about this house? What about our accounts? You think you can just take half of everything after the way you've neglected this marriage?" Claire raised an eyebrow, still recording. "Interesting approach for someone who just got caught cheating," she commented dryly. "Stay out of this," Jason snapped at her. "This is none of your business." "My sister is my business," Claire replied calmly. "Especially when her husband is cheating on her and trying to intimidate her." I zipped up the suitcase, having gathered the bare essentials. "I'll come back for the rest when you're not here," I told Jason. "This isn't over," he warned, his voice low. "It is for today," I replied, taking my suitcase and moving toward the stairs. Claire kept herself between us, her phone still recording subtly at her side. As we reached the bottom of the stairs, Jason made one last desperate attempt. "If you leave now, don't expect to come back," he threatened. "I'll change the locks. I'll freeze the accounts." I turned to look at him one last time, this man I had loved and trusted for so many years. "Go ahead," I said quietly. "It'll just make the divorce proceedings that much more interesting." As Claire and I headed for the door, a knock sounded. I opened it to find Officer Reynolds, our neighborhood patrol officer, standing on the porch. "Everything all right, Mrs. Bennett?" he asked. "Got a call from one of your neighbors about a domestic disturbance." I looked back at Jason, whose face had gone pale, then at Claire with her phone still recording, and finally at Officer Reynolds. "No," I said truthfully. "Everything is not all right. But I'm leaving now, so hopefully things will calm down." "I'll escort you to your car," Officer Reynolds offered, eyeing Jason warily. As we walked down the front path, I could feel Jason watching from the doorway. The weight of his betrayal pressed on my shoulders, but with each step away from our house, I felt something else too, the first faint stirrings of freedom. Sitting in Claire's passenger seat as we drove away from the home I'd shared with Jason for 5 years, I felt numb. The events of the past few hours played on repeat in my mind, walking in on Jason and Heather, discovering the financial betrayal, the confrontation that had turned physically intimidating. "You can stay with me as long as you need," Claire said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "The guest room is yours." I nodded mutely, watching the familiar streets of my neighborhood disappear behind us. The enormity of what had happened, what was happening, hadn't fully registered yet. I was operating on autopilot, my nurse's training kicking in: assess the situation, remove yourself from danger, treat the wounds later. "Do you want to talk about it?" Claire asked gently. "Not yet," I replied, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. We drove in silence for several minutes before a memory suddenly surfaced, not of Jason, but of our father. I was 12 and Claire 14 when he'd come home drunk again, screaming at our mother for some imagined slight. I remembered hiding in the closet with Claire, listening to the sounds of breaking glass and our mother's pleas. "I will never let a man treat me that way," I'd whispered to Claire in the darkness of that closet. "Me neither," she'd agreed, her skinny arm around my shoulders. "We're stronger than that." The memory hit me with unexpected force, bringing with it a wave of clarity. What had happened with Jason today, the intimidation, the attempt to prevent me from leaving, it was the beginning of a pattern I'd sworn never to accept. "I need to make some calls," I said suddenly, pulling out my phone. "Who are you calling?" Claire asked. "First, our bank," I replied, a new resolve strengthening my voice. "I need to secure what's left of our savings before Jason empties the accounts." Claire nodded approvingly. "Good thinking. What else?" "A lawyer," I said, already searching my contacts. "Sandra Alvarez handled Monica's divorce last year. She said Sandra was brilliant." As we pulled into Claire's driveway, I was already on hold with our bank. The customer service representative came back on the line just as we were entering the house. "Mrs. Bennett, I've placed a temporary freeze on your joint accounts as requested," she informed me. "This will prevent any withdrawals for the next 48 hours, giving you time to meet with our financial advisors about next steps." "Thank you," I said, relief evident in my voice. At least Jason couldn't drain what was left of our savings now. Claire's apartment was a cozy one-bedroom in a modern building downtown. The guest room was small but comfortable, with a pull-out sofa and a desk by the window. I set my suitcase down and took a deep breath, trying to center myself. My phone buzzed with multiple text notifications from Jason. "You're overreacting. Come home so we can talk. I'm sorry about today. It was a mistake. I just tried to get money for dinner and the card was declined." "What did you do?" The last message made me laugh humorlessly. I showed it to Claire, who rolled her eyes. "Block him," she suggested. "At least for tonight. Give yourself some space to think." I nodded, silencing the notifications but not blocking him completely. I wanted a record of his communications for the lawyer. Speaking of which, I found Sandra Alvarez's contact information and called her office, half expecting to get voicemail at this hour. To my surprise, she answered herself. Sandra Alvarez speaking. Sandra, this is Samantha Bennett. My friend Monica Reyes used your services last year for her divorce. I find myself needing similar assistance. There was a brief pause. I remember Monica. I'm sorry to hear you're going through this, Samantha. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? 9 o'clock? Yes, I said, relief washing over me at her efficiency. Thank you. After ending the call, I sat on the edge of the pull-out bed, suddenly overwhelmed. Claire sat beside me, putting an arm around my shoulders. It's okay to fall apart a little, she said softly. You've had one hell of a day. The permission was all I needed. The tears came then, hot and fast, sobs wrenching from somewhere deep inside me. Claire held me through it, murmuring comforting words, letting me purge the shock and grief. When the storm of emotion finally passed, I felt emptied out but somehow lighter. I wiped my eyes and took a shaky breath. I need to make a plan, I said, rising to find my laptop in my hastily packed bag. I need to figure out next steps. Claire watched me with concern. Maybe you should rest first? Process what's happened. I shook my head. No. I need to act while I'm thinking clearly. Jason is a lawyer. He knows how to manipulate situations to his advantage. I can't give him time to prepare a strategy. Understanding dawned in Claire's eyes. You're right. What do you need from me? First, can I borrow your printer? I need to print bank statements, property information, anything that documents our assets. Of course, she said, moving to set up her small desktop printer. What else? I need to document what happened today while it's fresh, I said, opening a new document on my laptop. Every detail I can remember. For the next few hours, I worked methodically, printing financial records, writing a detailed account of finding Jason with Heather, the confrontation that followed, his attempts to intimidate me. Claire helped, making coffee and sandwiches that I barely tasted, offering suggestions for documents I might need. As midnight approached, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Hello? I answered cautiously. Samantha? It's Heather Williams. Her voice sounded small and nervous. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from right now, but there are things you should know. Things about Jason that might be important for whatever you decide to do next. I put the call on speaker so Claire could hear. I'm listening, I said neutrally. Jason's been planning to leave you for months, she said, her words tumbling out quickly as if she feared losing her nerve. He talked about divorce, about how he was strategically moving assets. He mentioned an offshore account. Said it was his insurance policy for when things eventually fell apart with you. The revelation should have hurt, but instead it only reinforced my resolve. Do you have any proof of this? I asked. Some texts, she replied. And I know the name of the bank in the Cayman Islands. I saw documents once in his briefcase. I exchanged looks with Claire, whose eyes had widened. Would you be willing to provide a statement to my lawyer? I asked Heather. There was a pause, then, yes. I would. I was wrong to get involved with a married man. I'm not proud of it. But I won't help him cheat you financially too. After getting the offshore bank details from Heather and ending the call, I sat back in my chair, processing this new information. That manipulative bastard, Claire muttered. He was planning his exit strategy all along. I nodded slowly, a strange calm settling over me. And now, so am I. The next morning, I arrived at Sandra Alvarez's office armed with a folder of documents, Claire's recording of Jason's intimidation, and the information from Heather about the offshore account. Sandra listened attentively, taking notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished recounting everything, she sat back in her chair with a thoughtful expression. "You've done excellent preliminary work, Samantha. Most clients come in emotional and unprepared. You've given me a lot to work with. What should I expect?" I asked. "Based on what you've told me, especially about the offshore account and his behavior yesterday, we need to move quickly," she replied. "I recommend filing for divorce immediately, with requests for temporary orders freezing all assets and giving you exclusive use of the marital home." "I don't know if I want the house," I admitted. "There are too many memories now." Sandra nodded understandingly. "The important thing is to secure your rights to it and all other marital assets. We can decide later what you want to keep versus liquidate." As I left the lawyer's office an hour later, temporary orders drafted and ready to be filed with the court that afternoon, I felt something I hadn't expected: strength. The devastation of Jason's betrayal was still there, a raw wound that would take time to heal. But alongside it was a steely determination that surprised me. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "Just saw Jason's car driving by my building. I think he's looking for you." A chill ran down my spine, followed by resolve. I called Officer Reynolds, the neighborhood patrol officer who had responded to our house the previous day. "Mrs. Bennett," he answered. "How are you doing today?" "I'm concerned about my safety," I told him directly. "My husband appears to be trying to find me, and after his behavior yesterday, I'm uncomfortable." "Have you considered filing a restraining order?" he asked. "My lawyer is handling that this afternoon," I replied. "But in the meantime—" "I understand," he said. "I'll have patrols keep an eye on your sister's building." "And Samantha? You did the right thing yesterday, leaving when you did. Trust your instincts. Trust your instincts." The words echoed in my mind as I walked back to my car. My instincts had been trying to warn me about Jason for months, maybe years. The late nights. The protective behavior with his phone. The emotional distance. I had ignored those warnings, making excuses, choosing to believe in the marriage I thought we had rather than the reality in front of me. Never again, I promised myself as I started the car. Never again would I ignore my own instincts to protect someone else's lies. As I pulled away from the lawyer's office, I caught sight of Jason's black BMW turning into the parking lot. He must have followed me here, realizing I was taking legal action. Instead of fear, I felt a surge of certainty. I was doing the right thing. I was reclaiming my life. I drove to the bank next, meeting with a financial advisor to secure my personal funds and begin the process of documenting the missing money Jason had transferred. With each step I took to protect myself, I felt more empowered, more certain. By late afternoon, Sandra called to confirm the divorce papers had been filed along with the temporary orders and restraining order. "The sheriff will serve Jason tomorrow," she informed me. "Be prepared for him to react. These first few days are often the most volatile." "I'm staying with my sister," I assured her. "And we've alerted local police." "Good," Sandra replied. "And Samantha? I know this is painful, but from a legal standpoint, you're in a strong position. The evidence of infidelity and financial misconduct is compelling." After ending the call, I sat in Claire's guest room, looking at the small suitcase containing the fragments of my former life. 7 years of marriage, reduced to a few essential items hastily packed. The pain of that reality washed over me, but it didn't drown me this time. I thought about the young nurse I'd been when I married Jason, hopeful, trusting, perhaps a bit naive. I couldn't go back to being her, and truthfully, I didn't want to. The woman I was becoming, clear-eyed, resolute, unwilling to accept betrayal, she was stronger. She would survive this. My phone rang again, the hospital's number. It was my supervisor, Linda. "Sam, I heard what happened," she said without preamble. "Claire called to let me know you might need some time off." "I was going to call you tomorrow," I began. "Take whatever time you need," Linda interrupted. "Your position is secure." "And Sam? For what it's worth, you deserve better than what he did." "We all think so." The simple validation brought fresh tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I managed. "The night shift misses you already," Linda continued, her tone lightening slightly. "Johnson in radiology asked if you'd consider dating once your divorce is final." The unexpected comment startled a laugh from me, my first genuine laugh since walking into my bedroom yesterday. "That's premature," I said. "Of course it is," Linda agreed. "Just wanted to remind you that there's life after Jason. A whole lot of it." After hanging up, I stood and went to the window, looking out at the city stretching below Claire's apartment. Linda was right. There was life after Jason. My career was thriving. I had friends, family, colleagues who valued me. I had myself, stronger now, wiser for the experience. The marriage was over. But I was just beginning. 3 months after the day I walked in on Jason and Heather, I stood in my new apartment, unpacking the last of my boxes. The one-bedroom place was smaller than the house I'd shared with Jason, but it was mine alone, a clean slate, free from painful memories. The divorce proceedings were well underway, though far from finished. Jason had initially tried to contest everything, claiming I'd abandoned the marriage by leaving that day. His position weakened considerably when Sandra presented evidence of his affair and the offshore account to the court. The judge had not been impressed with his attempts to hide marital assets. Still, Jason was a lawyer, and he knew how to drag things out. What could have been a straightforward division of assets had become a protracted legal battle. But I was holding my ground, refusing to be intimidated or manipulated into accepting less than I deserved. "The bedroom looks great," Claire said, entering with 2 glasses of wine. She handed one to me and surveyed the freshly painted walls, a soothing sage green that I'd chosen myself. "Very zen." "That was the goal," I replied, taking a sip. "Peaceful. My own sanctuary." We moved to the small balcony overlooking a tree-lined street. It was a warm summer evening, the kind Jason and I would have spent grilling in our backyard. The thought came without the sharp pain that had accompanied memories of him in those first raw weeks. "How was your session with Dr. Martinez today?" Claire asked, settling into one of the patio chairs. I'd started therapy 6 weeks after leaving Jason, when the initial shock had worn off and the full emotional impact of his betrayal had hit me. Dr. Martinez specialized in trauma and recovery, helping me process not just the end of my marriage but the way it had ended. "Good," I said thoughtfully. "We talked about forgiveness." Claire raised an eyebrow. "You're forgiving Jason?" I shook my head. "Not yet, maybe not ever. But I'm working on forgiving myself." "For what?" Claire looked genuinely confused. "You didn't do anything wrong." "For ignoring the signs," I explained. "For making excuses when my gut was telling me something was off. For putting so much of myself into a relationship that wasn't what I thought it was." Claire nodded slowly. "That makes sense. But you know it wasn't your fault, right? His choices were his alone." "I know," I agreed. "Dr. Martinez has been very clear about that. But there's value in examining my patterns too, so I don't repeat them." The divorce support group I joined had been helpful in this regard as well. Hearing other people's stories, some even more heartbreaking than mine, had helped me feel less alone. We shared coping strategies, vented frustrations about legal proceedings, and celebrated small victories together. My phone buzzed with a text notification. I checked it to find a message from Monica, a fellow nurse who'd gone through her own divorce last year. "Trivia night at Murphy's tomorrow? The hospital team needs you." I smiled and typed back a quick "count me on," before setting the phone aside. "Going out?" Claire asked. "Trivia night with the hospital crew," I confirmed. It's time I started saying yes to more social invitations. In the weeks immediately following my separation from Jason, I'd isolated myself, too raw and emotionally exhausted to face social situations. But gradually, I'd begun accepting invitations, first from Claire and my closest friends, then extending to wider circles. Each outing had gotten a little easier than the last. Speaking of the hospital, I said, Linda offered me the chance to lead the new trauma response training program. Claire's eyes widened. Sam, that's amazing. Are you going to take it? I nodded, feeling a surge of pride. I start next month. It's exactly the kind of role I've been working toward. Jason would have hated that, Claire observed. Remember how he acted when you got the head nurse promotion? All those comments about your hours and attention being divided? I do remember, I said quietly. He never wanted me to outshine him. I see that now. It was one of many revelations I'd had about my marriage in retrospect. Jason had been supportive of my career in theory, but whenever my success threatened to eclipse his own, his support had turned to subtle undermining. The pattern was clear to me now, though I'd been blind to it while living it. My phone rang, Sandra Alvarez calling. I excused myself to answer it. Samantha, good news, Sandra said without preamble. The forensic accountant found the transfers to the Cayman account. All of them. We now have documentation of Jason moving nearly $70,000 offshore over the past year. I sank onto the edge of my bed, stunned. 70,000? That's more than we thought. It is, Sandra confirmed. And it significantly strengthens our position. The judge has ordered those funds frozen pending the final divorce decree. After finishing the call, I returned to the balcony in a daze. What is it? Claire asked, concerned. Jason hid $70,000 offshore, I told her. 70,000 from our joint savings, our future. Claire swore under her breath. That bastard. The thing is, I said slowly, I'm not even surprised anymore. Each new revelation about his deception just confirms what I already know, that I never really knew him at all. The man I thought I'd married, honest, ethical, loving, had been a carefully constructed facade. The real Jason was manipulative, selfish, and capable of sustained deception. The pain of that reality had dulled over time, replaced by a sort of detached clarity. The next day, I met with my divorce support group at a community center downtown. There were 8 of us regularly attending now, led by a compassionate counselor named Diane. We sat in a circle, sharing updates on our situations. I finally slept through the night, shared Thomas, a soft-spoken teacher whose wife had left him for her gym trainer. First time in months without waking up reaching for her. Murmurs of understanding circled the room. We'd all experienced those moments, the phantom presence of our former partners, the body's muscle memory not catching up to the new reality. I had a panic attack in the grocery store, admitted Renee, a young mother of 2. Saw my ex with his new girlfriend. Couldn't breathe. Had to abandon my cart and leave. What did you do after? Diane asked gently. Called my sister, Renee said. Went to her place. Cried. Then went back later and finished shopping. She smiled faintly. Small victory. When my turn came, I shared the news about the hidden money and my new job opportunity. How does the financial discovery make you feel? Diane asked. I considered the question carefully. Validated, I finally said. Each piece of evidence confirms I made the right choice in leaving. And honestly? Grateful that I found out when I did, before we had children together. After the session, I walked with Renee to the parking lot. How are your kids doing? I asked. Better, she said. The routine helps. And their therapist is amazing. She paused by her car. Can I ask you something personal? I nodded. Do you ever miss him? Even knowing what he did? The question caught me off guard with its simplicity and depth. I miss who I thought he was, I answered honestly. I miss the future I thought we were building. But the real Jason? No. I don't miss being lied to and manipulated. Renee nodded thoughtfully. That helps. Thank you. That evening, I met my hospital colleagues at Murphy's Pub for trivia night. The familiar faces and easy camaraderie felt comforting. Dr. Chen from cardiology, nurses from my unit, even some of the administrative staff had joined the team. Bennett, called Miranda, an ER nurse I'd trained years ago. Get over here. We're getting crushed on the movie questions. For 2 hours, I lost myself in the friendly competition, laughing more than I had in months. Our team, the night shift, placed second, winning a round of drinks for the table. To Sam, toasted Dr. Chen, raising his glass. Back where she belongs. The simple gesture of inclusion brought a lump to my throat. These people, my colleagues, my friends, had been there all along, a support system I hadn't fully appreciated while wrapped up in my marriage. As I drove home that night, I reflected on how much had changed in 3 months. The woman who had walked in on her husband's betrayal had been shattered, her world upended in an instant. The woman driving home tonight was still healing, still processing, but fundamentally intact. The following week brought another significant transition, moving the last of my belongings from the house I'd shared with Jason. The court had granted me access to collect my remaining possessions while Jason was required to be absent. Claire and 2 friends from the hospital helped, efficiently packing my books, artwork, and the personal items I hadn't taken in my initial hasty departure. The house felt different now, just a structure of wood and stone, stripped of the emotional significance it once held. In the master bedroom, I paused briefly, remembering that terrible moment of discovery. The bed had been replaced, a small mercy, but the room still echoed with the pain of betrayal. I took a deep breath and finished collecting my jewelry and personal documents from the safe, then closed the door on that chapter of my life. That's everything, I told Claire as we loaded the last box into her SUV. I'm never coming back here. The next day, I met with a realtor to discuss selling my share of the house to Jason. He'd expressed desire to keep it, which suited me fine. I wanted nothing to do with it anymore. Based on current market values and the outstanding mortgage, your equity share would be approximately $120,000, the realtor explained. Of course, that could be adjusted as part of your overall divorce settlement. It was a substantial sum, enough for a down payment on my own place when I was ready. For now, my apartment lease gave me time to decide my next steps without pressure. As spring turned to summer, I settled into new routines. Work remained my anchor, but I'd found better balance, making time for the support group, therapy, and gradually expanding social activities. I started taking a pottery class on Saturday mornings, something I'd always wanted to try but had never prioritized during my marriage. The divorce proceedings continued their slow march toward resolution. Jason had finally accepted that his attempts to hide assets had backfired, making him look worse to the court. His settlement offers had become more reasonable, though Sandra still advised caution. He's hoping you'll get tired of fighting and settle for less than you deserve, she warned during one of our meetings. It's a common tactic. I'm not in a hurry, I assured her. I want what's fair, no more and no less. In July, 6 months after the separation, I received an unexpected email from Heather. I almost deleted it unread, but curiosity won out. Samantha, it began. I'm moving to our firm's Seattle office next month. Before I go, I wanted to apologize again for my role in causing you pain. I've learned a lot about myself through this experience, none of it flattering. I hope someday you find happiness with someone worthy of your trust. Jason never was. I read it twice, unsure how to feel. There was no response needed, no forgiveness to grant or withhold. Heather was simply another person who'd been caught in Jason's web of lies, albeit more willingly than I had been. That night, I wrote in the journal Dr. Martinez had encouraged me to keep. 6 months since my world imploded. 6 months of rebuilding myself from the ground up. There are still days when the pain hits unexpectedly, a song on the radio, a place we visited together, the phantom habit of reaching for my wedding ring. But those moments grow fewer and farther between. I'm learning to trust myself again. To listen to my instincts. To recognize red flags instead of explaining them away. I'm rediscovering parts of myself that got lost in my marriage, my passion for photography, my love of live music, my independence. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe another relationship someday, when I'm ready. Maybe not. What I do know is that I'm stronger than I ever realized. Surviving betrayal taught me that the divorce will be final soon. But in all the ways that matter, I've already moved on. The next morning, I woke to sunshine streaming through my bedroom window. I made coffee and took it out to my small balcony, watching the neighborhood come to life below. A young couple walked hand in hand down the sidewalk. An elderly man walked his golden retriever. A mother helped her daughter learn to ride a bike. Life, in all its messy, beautiful complexity, continued. And so did I. When the divorce was finally granted 3 months later, I marked the occasion not with sadness but with quiet celebration. Claire and a few close friends came over with champagne and takeout. We toasted to new beginnings and hard-won wisdom. To Samantha Bennett, Claire said, raising her glass, who walked into her worst nightmare and came out stronger on the other side. To all of us, I amended, including everyone in the toast. For being there when I needed you most. Later, after everyone had gone, I stood again on my balcony under a star-filled sky. The journey from that devastating day to this moment of peace had been arduous, filled with tears and rage and grief. But standing here now, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again so soon: hope. Not hope tied to another person or relationship, but hope rooted in myself and my own resilience. Hope for a future that, while different from what I'd once planned, could still be rich and meaningful and mine. The betrayal had nearly broken me. But in putting myself back together, I'd created something stronger than before, a life built on my own terms, a heart more cautious but still open to possibility, and wisdom earned through the hardest kind of experience. I wasn't grateful for what Jason had done. I would never be. But I was grateful for who I had become in its aftermath. The woman who had walked in on her husband's betrayal 9 months ago wasn't the same woman standing here tonight. She was braver. Wiser. More compassionate toward herself and others. And she was ready, finally, to close this chapter and begin writing the next. If you've made it to the end of my story, I want to thank you for listening. If you've ever experienced betrayal or are going through it now, please know you're not alone. Trust your instincts, seek support, and remember that healing isn't linear, but it is possible. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced something similar? What helped you through it? Don't forget to like and subscribe if my story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that there is life after betrayal. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.